too.
Just how the heck that guy on Facebook built his airplane in 1 day? 1 day? Just how? How did he do it? Holy crap. Alright guys, we're making progress on the BDX. Have the aft section here. I've got the elevator servos installed. I'm sorting out the linkages. Got the rudder servo installed. And next task is get the linkages on and adjusted, and then I'll run the wires through the fuselage here. I already took the thrust tube out so I can get access to the inside here. We got the holes here for the servo wires to go through. And we'll get those run tied together, and then I have heat-proof covering to go over the wires so they don't get exposed to the heat from the engine. And keep plugging her on here, and hopefully we'll get this thing ready to fly in a few days. Back to work. Okay, moving along on the BDX build. I've got the elevator rudder linkages installed, the servos installed. Now moving on to the wing. I'm going to start putting in the servos, and the flap servo is buried deep inside. Hard to see, but it's there. And I've got the wires for the elevators in place and the rudder, and I've got them on the heat protective material over the wires, and I've got some zip tie anchors epoxied in place inside. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a 12-pin Ashlock connector here, and one on the other side, so if I ever do want to break it in half to transport it, I can. That'll make it real easy. So next up, onto the wing. So I'm making slow progress on the BDX. I had a few hang-ups. This style flap linkage I've never worked with before, and the way the manual described it, I had the control linkages set for the proper distance in the book, and my geometry was way off, so I messed around with flipping the servo over and adjusting things, trying to get it to work right, and then finally what I ended up doing was extending the adjustments on the rod from 88 millimeters, which is what the book called for, to 93 and a half millimeters, and that solved the geometry problem. I got the proper throw in degrees, and that hung me up for half a day trying to get that straightened out. The other thing is that these servos, of course, almost every model is the same way. They make the cutouts for the servos a little bit smaller so that if your brand servo you're using is smaller, it'll fit in this cutouts snugly. So mine, of course, are a little bit bigger, and so therefore you have to get in here and sand out the hole, which for this first wing took me forever to get the servo sanded out and the flap servo mount hole sanded out. And I installed the nav light here, and I put a connector in the servo hatch area, so that if I want to disconnect it and actually have to pull this nav light out, I can, which I hope I never have to do. But so all these wires come down and are going to go into one connector right there, and I'm using these Ashlock 12-pin connectors, but unfortunately I didn't realize that they come without the pins, and you have to order the pins separately. So it'll be a few day delay to get the pins for those connectors. So in the meantime, I won't be able to finish this wing. Got the landing gear spotlight mounted on the gear, and I just have to tidy up these wires so they don't get caught on anything when the gear retracts and extends. So continuing progress. The protective heat covering for the servo wires from the tail is in place. I just need the pins for the Ashlock connect. Another Ashlock connector will go here. So if I need to separate the two halves of the plane, I can. And we'll keep moving. Hopefully sometime this week I'll get it done. But moving along, on to the next thing, back to work. So I've got my wings to the point where I can't go any farther. I have to wait for the pin connectors I need for my the pins for my connectors. And so moving on to the fuselage, the front half of the fuselage. Need to start laying out how I want the components to go. Such, for instance, the UAT, which will probably just go right there, but I'm going to start taking these plates out. I've got all the screws out already. This is the battery tray. It goes all the way up front. And now we can see underneath that the front landing gear. Will sit in there just like that. And I need to make sure I get the alignment right, otherwise it could clip the fiberglass when it retracts and extends. I need to pull the fuel tanks out, or the fuel tank and the smoke oil tank is back there. I'll pull those out and install fuel lines in them. So we'll get started on that. The fuel tank and the smoke oil tank are out, and I need to do the lines inside the tank. So this is for the smoke oil tank here. This will be laid out like that. I measured the inside to the back of the tank, and I laid out these pieces here, and all I need to do now is just cut a piece of Tygon fuel tubing to go in between the gaps, and then safety wire them, and then do the same thing for the fuel tank, the larger fuel tank, and then we can install that stuff. Okay, I've got my fuel line, or my smoke oil line for the tank pickup set distance wise, so it should not get caught on the back of the tank, but the clunk that was provided won't fit through the opening. So I'm going to have to put this in the drill and kind of machine it down a little bit so it can slide through the opening. And then I'll safety wire everything. I completed the fuel line pickups and got it safety wired. So that's ready to go in. Tighten that up later. The smoke oil tank is ready. Got the line installed. It was a bear because it was just so tight going in through the hole here, but managed to get it in there. Don't know if it's going to come back out if you ever got to change the line, but it's in there. So those are set. And now we just got to get in here and start figuring out where I want to put things. So, back to work. Well, I'm beginning to lay out the components in the fuselage, forward fuselage. I've got the turbine set at approximately the right distance that it should be sitting at. Once I put the two halves together, I'll get a final position on it. Now I'm looking at putting my fuel pump for the turbine and the pump for the smoke oil smoke system underneath the electronics mounting plate, which sits like this on top. I'll need to glue a piece of plywood down there so I can mount stuff. So this is the UAT, Universal Air Trap, for the turbine, so you won't get air bubbles in the line. This is my power expander for the radio system. And then up here, the battery placement is going to be depending on how the balance works out. I've got the turbine battery up there. These are the packs I'm going to use. These are lithium-ion 2170 packs that we made ourselves, 4,000 milliamps each. And we can put those right up in the nose as well. And depending on balance. And when we go to balance the airplane, that's when we'll determine where those battery packs are going to end up. I would like to have the turbine battery closer to the turbine. That way I don't have to run a super long wire for it. But, anyway, progress being made. Hopefully my pins for the connectors for the wing connectors should show up soon, and we'll get busy on that. We'll set it up. Alrighty, back to work. Alrighty, so progress today. I've got the equipment panel glued in place. I've got the fuel pump for the turbine in, smoke oil pump, the lighting controller, all put in the place where they're going to go. And then I just need to figure out the layout for the top equipment tray. And I think the power expander there I'm just going to center along with the gear controller. And I'll probably have to cut some holes here for wires to come through. And the receivers, I think I'm going to mount to the sides here. Something like that on each side. I think that's the way I'm going to do it. We'll see what happens. The gear, the front nose gear has been mounted, and I had to do a little bit of trimming on the fiberglass here, not much, but that's ready. So now just got to do a couple mounting things and then running wires and doing connector crimping, which will take a while. So back to work. wire got bundled in. Okay.
It's locked in.
That. See anything in the way?
Good. You need to get over here so it's cold. Like that?
Oh. Need a bigger room.
Yeah.
All right, so we just put the BDX together for the first time. And here I've got the connector for the aft section to the front section. And I got to go back through and so there's the fuel pump, smoke pump, lighting control there. And then where the radio gear is going and the landing gear controller. And then we just need to get the turbine in, get it lined up, do some more wiring, and we're getting close. Back to work. Well, I'm down to the final bits of assembly, and the thing is huge, takes up a lot of room in the shop, hard to work around. But yeah, yesterday we tried to balance it, and it fell and did some minor damage to it. But it ends up needing approximately 1.25 pounds of lead in the nose, even with the batteries all the way forward. So that's something we're going to have to work with. Anyway, I'm going to finish hooking everything up, get all the bits together. See if I can get this canopy off. But here's the final configuration. So got to get the wiring all hooked up, and everything's in place. All the connections are made. Just got to bolt the turbine down, make sure it's aligned, and hook all the wires up. Get the batteries fastened down, and then it's ready to go. I got to set all the control throws, and we're good to go. Hopefully by the end of the day, the afternoon, we'll be ready to go. I didn't film as much as I wanted to. I just was pushing to get this thing done, so a lot of it wasn't filmed. But anyway, we'll get back to work here and see if we can get this thing finished up. Yeah, I'm almost there. Programming's almost done. A few more odds and ends to do. Some Lights are looking beautiful. That's it, almost there. We'll get her done soon. Well, this is it. The jet is done. Time for the maiden. We got a model airplane event coming up next week, and I need to get this done, so time to go fly.